Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that every dollar, every coin, every digital balance in your account is suddenly worthless. Your salary, gone. Your savings, just numbers on a dead screen. And yet, life goes on. People still trade, survive, and rebuild without money. It sounds impossible, but it has happened before. In Rome, in Weimar Germany, in Zimbabwe. And even today, in slow, invisible ways, it's happening again. So here's the question that few dare to ask. When money fails, what actually survives? What holds societies together when the very thing that once defined value no longer has any? What becomes the new currency when trust itself collapses? This is not just a story about economics. It's a story about power, belief, survival, and the human tendency to rebuild value from ashes. So, stay with me till the end, because this story reveals not only how civilizations fall, but also what always rises when money dies. Before we dive into the collapses and crises, we must understand a truth so simple, yet so ignored, that it feels uncomfortable. Money is not real. Not in the way we imagine it. It's not gold, not paper, not even the digital code in your banking app. Money is a belief system. It's a collective hallucination that billions of people agree to share. A US dollar has value not because of what it is, but because you and I both believe it does. It's a faith-based instrument, and faith is fragile. Throughout history, when that shared belief is shattered, nations don't just lose wealth, they lose identity. But here's the twist. When money fails, humans always invent something new to replace it. Something that can't be printed, inflated, or devalued overnight. And to find out what that is, we must travel back to the ancient world. Before coins, there was barter. Cattle for grain, salt for tools, labor for safety. But barter was messy. It required coincidence. You had to find someone who wanted what you had and had what you wanted. Then came the revolutionary idea. Represent value through a symbol. The first coins appeared around 600 BC in the ancient kingdom of Lydia, stamped with lions and gods to prove authenticity. This tiny piece of metal was more than convenience. It was trust made visible. Empires rose on this idea. Greece, Persia, Rome. Money became the bloodstream of civilization. But as empires grew, so did greed. And every empire eventually made the same fatal mistake. They tampered with the trust behind their currency. Let's begin with Rome, the superpower that turned coins into a political weapon. For centuries, the Roman denarius, made of pure silver, symbolized stability. But wars are expensive. Armies must be paid. Citizens must be fed. So Roman emperors began to cheat their own money. They reduced the silver content, mixing in cheaper metals while keeping the same stamp of Caesar's head. It was genius and deadly, because as coins lost purity, the people lost trust. Over time, markets adjusted. Prices rose. Bread that once cost 1 denarius now cost 10. Sound familiar? This was the first recorded inflation crisis, long before the word even existed. But it didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, quiet, almost invisible, just like today's inflation. When money loses its anchor to something real, it becomes an instrument of illusion, and illusions always fade. By the 3rd century AD, the Roman Empire's economy was in chaos. Soldiers refused payment in coins. Merchants demanded goods instead of money. People reverted to barter, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The Emperor Diocletian tried to fix it. He issued new coins, passed laws against price gouging, and threatened death to hoarders. But it didn't work. Because once people stop believing in money, no law can make them believe again. Rome didn't fall in a single day. It eroded economically long before it was conquered militarily. And when its money failed, so did its ability to feed armies, build roads, and govern. Civilization didn't vanish. It simply shrank into survival mode. Barter returned. Local trade flourished. People relied on relationships, not coins. The lesson? When money fails, trust replaces currency. When Rome's currency collapsed, It wasn't the rich or the powerful who survived. It was the resourceful. Farmers, blacksmiths, craftsmen, anyone who could produce tangible value became the new elite. In a world where money was worthless, skills became wealth. Communities turned inward. Faith institutions, especially the church, became the new banks, not of money, but of trust and information. You see, Rome's fall didn't destroy value. It simply transferred it, from coins to connections, from currency to capability. And this pattern will repeat again and again for centuries. Let's jump ahead almost 2,000 years to another empire, one that printed money not with silver, but with promises. Germany, 1923. A loaf of bread cost 250 marks, then 2,000, then 200 billion. People carried money in wheelbarrows, children made kites out of banknotes, and entire life savings vanished overnight. How did this happen? After World War I, Germany was crushed by reparations. The government didn't have enough gold or goods to pay its debts, so it did the unthinkable. It printed more money. At first it seemed harmless. Workers got paid, factories ran, debts were managed. But soon the illusion cracked. When everyone realized that the paper mark wasn't backed by anything real, prices exploded. Shops changed prices twice a day. Farmers refused to sell food for money. And once again, people turned to barter. Farmers traded potatoes for shoes. Teachers were paid with bread or coal. What survived wasn't the money. It was community, trade, and tangible assets. Hyperinflation isn't just an economic event. It's a psychological one. Imagine saving your whole life and watching your savings buy only a single loaf of bread. That's not just financial ruin. That's betrayal. In Weimar Germany, suicide rates soared. Crime exploded. People stopped trusting banks, government, even neighbors. And from that chaos, extremism rose. Adolf Hitler's rise to power was fueled not by politics alone, but by the emotional wreckage of a society betrayed by its money. When people lose faith in their currency, they look for something else to believe in. And often, they turn to dangerous answers. So, what truly survives when money fails? Faith. But sometimes that faith becomes weaponized. Fast forward to Zimbabwe, 2008. A single loaf of bread cost 300 billion Zimbabwean dollars. The government printed a $100 trillion note. And even that couldn't buy a bus ticket. Once again, the same story unfolded. Printing money to solve debt created more debt. Citizens turned to foreign currencies, gold, even barter. And amidst the chaos, one strange thing survived: the human need to trade. Street vendors thrived. Informal markets popped up everywhere. People created their own microeconomies, built on trust, skill, and resourcefulness. It's as if every time money collapses, humanity reverts to its oldest truth. Value is not paper, it's people. So, what have we learned from centuries of collapse? Apparently not much, because the modern world is walking the same path, only slower and more sophisticated. We call it quantitative easing. We call it stimulus. We call it deficit spending. But the mechanism is the same: printing more debt to solve debt. Today, the United States has over $35 trillion in national debt. Global debt, according to the IMF, has surpassed $315 trillion, 3 times the world's annual GDP. Let that sink in. The entire planet owes 3 times more than it produces in a year. So, who's the creditor? That's the mystery. Because the debt system has evolved beyond nations. It's now controlled by central banks, institutions, and algorithms, entities that profit not from production, but from perpetual debt. And yet, despite all the complexity, the underlying truth remains the same as in Rome. You can't print trust. Today, inflation doesn't come as a sudden explosion. It creeps quietly. A cup of coffee that cost $1 10 years ago now costs $3. Housing, healthcare, education, all rising faster than wages. But unlike Weimar Germany, we don't see wheelbarrows of cash. We see digital inflation. Our bank accounts still show numbers, but those numbers buy less every year. And because the illusion feels digital, we rarely notice how deep the loss is. The result? A generation working harder, yet feeling poorer. A middle class disappearing into debt, and a financial system running on hope, not value. History doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes, quietly, until it screams. When the dust settles, whether it's Rome, Weimar, or a digital age meltdown, the survivors share three common traits. 1. They own what's real: land, food, skills, tools, community, not digits or debt, but things that hold intrinsic value. 2. They understand trust as currency. In every collapse, the people who built relationships survived. When banks failed, barter networks replaced them. When governments fell, local trust rebuilt trade. 3. They adapt faster than systems. When institutions freeze, innovation thrives. In Zimbabwe, people used mobile airtime as currency. In Venezuela, they turned to crypto. In ancient Rome, they relied on craftsmanship. Money may fail, but ingenuity never does. If we strip away all forms of currency, all digital systems, all printed notes, what remains? The real economy. Not the one measured in GDP or stock prices, but the economy of human capability. A farmer growing food, a teacher spreading knowledge, a builder, a healer, a creator. When money fails, these people become the backbone of civilization. That's the paradox of collapse. While the illusion of wealth dies, real value re-emerges. Every great monetary collapse is also a spiritual event, because when money dies, people confront what they truly value. In post-collapse societies, religion, philosophy, and community often experience rebirth. People realize, maybe for the first time, that security doesn't come from numbers, but from meaning. In ancient Rome, Christianity spread during collapse. In Weimar Germany, art and culture exploded before being silenced. In modern times, people turn to mindfulness, simplicity, or faith, seeking stability in chaos. Perhaps what truly survives when money fails is the human soul's search for value beyond price. Let's summarize the pattern. 1. Money begins as trust. 2. Power corrupts that trust. 3. People lose faith. 4. Collapse follows. 5. Then real value re-emerges. This cycle is as old as civilization itself. Every empire that believed it could outsmart reality met the same fate. And yet every collapse gave birth to renewal. Rome's fall led to the Renaissance. Weimar's ashes gave rise to modern industry. Zimbabwe's chaos inspired digital innovation. So maybe the end of money is never truly the end. It's simply the reset of what we choose to value. 1. Money is only as strong as our belief in it. When trust dies, even the most powerful currencies crumble overnight. Protecting belief is more critical than protecting balance sheets. 2. Real assets and relationships outlast paper wealth. History proves that tangible value, land, skills, and community are the ultimate forms of security. 3. Every collapse is also a beginning. From ashes rise new systems, new values, new forms of exchange. The end of one currency marks the rebirth of another idea, sometimes more human, sometimes more dangerous. The next collapse won't involve burning banknotes or wheelbarrows of cash. It'll be digital, silent, invisible, and instant. A glitch, a hack, a global reset. And when that happens, the question won't be, how much do you have? It'll be, what can you offer? Because when the system stops working, skills, trust, and integrity become the new currency. History has shown that money, in all its forms, eventually fails. But what never fails is the human spirit's ability to rebuild, to find value, and to keep believing in something greater. So as we move deeper into an uncertain financial future, with digital currencies, trillion-dollar debts, and invisible inflation, remember this: the most valuable thing you can ever own is not in your wallet, but in your mind and your hands. If this message made you think, don't forget to share it. Because awareness is the first defense against collapse. And maybe, just maybe, when money fails again, it'll be wisdom, not wealth, that survives.